Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I am bringing you a book unhaul. Now this is the first of two book unhauls that I'm going to be doing this month because I've got so many books in my life that I feel like I don't need them anymore, both read and unread. I'm going to take you through these books and tell you my reasoning for getting rid of them. It doesn't mean that they are all bad books, it just means they're not right for me right now, or they're books that I have enjoyed but I'm probably never going to read again. And now these books can all go to much better homes. I'm going to be taking all of these books to the book swap in my local tube station. I'm going to start with the book that I feel the most torn about whether I want to get rid of it or not, and that is The Accidental by Ali Smith. This is one of the books that has been on my TBR for the longest time. At the start of the year, I did a video where I spoke about the 12 books that have been on my TBR the longest, and this is one of these books. And I was planning on reading one of these books each month, and this is one of the ones that I have put on TBRs twice this year, and I've just not read it, and I have to kind of admit that that means I probably don't want to read it. I've read a lot of Ali Smith before, and I found her writing a little bit hit or miss for my own reading tastes. I think my reading taste is far less literary than I once pretended it was. So I think someone will enjoy this a lot more than I will. Another one of those books is Perfect by Jane Shemelt. Again, this is one that I've put on a couple of TBRs and just haven't got around to it because I think ultimately I don't want to read it. It's a thriller. I don't really love thrillers. I haven't really heard anyone talking about this particular thriller, which doesn't encourage me to read it. But hopefully, again, someone will enjoy it more than I will. Next, I have two books by the same author. We have the Jane Austen Book Club and The Case of the Imaginary Detective Society, both by Karen Joy Fowler. I read her book, We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves, a few years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favourite books of all time. But last year I read another one of her books, Sister Noon, and I didn't really enjoy it. And since then I've just had absolutely no desire to read either of these books. It's quite possible that I would really like them, but I don't fancy them at the moment, and hopefully someone else will enjoy them. So they are all of the unread books I am unhauling. Now onto some that I have already read. So I have Eat My Heart Out by Zoe Pilger. I read this one fairly recently. In fact, I think most of these are quite recent reads. And I just didn't really get it. It's like a satire book about a woman in her 20s who has very poor mental health and a very poor relationship with herself and with sex, and I just didn't really get it. We have Odd Girl Out by Laura James. This is a book that I very thoroughly enjoyed. It is about a woman in her 40s who is diagnosed with autism and how her understanding of that impacts her life, and a lot of things begin to make sense for her, and she learns how to manage her autism a lot better than she has been like before she was diagnosed. I think it's a really great book. I just don't think it's one that I'm going to read again. We have The Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. This is again one that I read quite recently and I really liked it, but I just don't think I'm gonna read it again. Leanne Moriarty's Truly Madly Guilty was a really disappointing read for me. I have read two of her books previously and this is the one that I enjoyed the least. I found it kind of underwhelming, but Leanne Moriarty is such a popular writer that I know someone will be really excited to get their hands on this. Raising the Dead by Andy Dugan was a book that I was really disappointed by. It's kind of blurbed as being a book that is about the men who actually tried to create Frankenstein, or a version of bringing people back from the dead, and that was meant to have supposedly inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's really not. It's really a book about how electricity impacted the medical profession, which, you know, it could be a fantastic book about that, but it's not what it's not what I was told that this book was about. Billy and Me by Giovanna Fletcher. This is a contemporary women's fiction novel, and I don't think it's a particularly remarkable book within that genre. I think it's I found this book really boring. I didn't find any of the characters likable. I've read two Giovanna Fletcher books now, and I don't think I'm going to be reading any more. They're just not for me, but they're very popular, so lots of people obviously do like them. Next, we have A Portable Shelter by Kirsty Logan. Me getting rid of this book is by no means a reflection of the quality of this book. I think it's a really great book. I feel like I don't really gel with Kirsty Logan's writing style. It's a bit too loose and kind of whimsical for me. This one is signed as well, so I think someone would be really excited to get a copy of this. I'm also getting rid of The Secret Barrister by The Secret Barrister. This is a book that is all about how the law system in the UK is flawed, And it's really, really informative about how people can find themselves in trouble with the law, and how it's really important to be informed about these things, because people so often think, oh, I don't need to know about the process of like getting a lawyer or whatever, because I'm never going to break the law. And it's not as simple as that. I thought this book was really informative. I thought it was great, but it's just not one that I'm going to reread. And when so few people know the information in this book, I think it's a really valuable thing to be passing on to someone else. And finally, I have One More Chance by Lucy Ayrton. I really enjoyed this book. I thought this book was fantastic. It is about a woman who has kind of been failed by the system. She is in prison and she sees an opportunity that she may be able to escape. This book looks at how she found herself in prison, what circumstances have led her there, and how ultimately society has failed her. I think it's a really, really important book, and I don't think as many people have read it as, should have. So I'm very glad to be passing this one on so someone else can enjoy it. It's just, I don't think I'm going to reread it. That's it. They are all the books that I'm getting rid of today. When I go back to my mom's house for Christmas, I'm going to do a much more brutal book cull. I once had this fantasy that I would own a copy of every single book I'd ever read, which is just ridiculous at this point, where I'm reading like way over 100 books a year. It's just not possible. I think there's no point holding on to so many books just for the sake of having them when like someone else could be enjoying them. If I have no intention of rereading these books, why bother? Let me know down in the comments if you are someone that regularly unhauls books. I think when I do the big unhaul later this month, it's going to be a really liberating experience for me. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on how they go about getting rid of books from their collection. If you have any thoughts on this, do leave me a comment down below and we can have a little chat. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you in my next video.